My name is Carly Lamberts. I'm an IFBB Bikini Pro, which is weird to say that out loud in this setting. Newly turned. I turned pro at Universe 2024, so this last July. And yeah, I work full time for Red Bull Distributing Company, so I get to enjoy that. I've actually got Red Bull with me. Um, and yeah, I love to lift. Both my husband and I are avid bodybuilders. He just won an overall at his show this summer, so it's been a fun one. I rode competitively in high school and in college. And when I kind of got out of that side of things, I was looking like I didn't feel like I had any hobbies at that point, and I just really wasn't happy with my body, like a lot of females are. I feel like um, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I just started, like, as a lot of people do, just trying to get smaller, like just trying to get smaller. Mind you, I wasn't very big to begin with. I'm 5'7". And when I started being a cardio bunny, I was like 115 pounds. So I wasn't very big, had no muscle, like no muscle. I was tall and just like teeny tiny. Um, and I just wanted to feel happy in my body. And I was also going through a lot of like knee issues and just trying to like feel like I could go through life and not be hurting all the time. So I started initially just cardio, got really small, realized that I think I went down to like 112 pounds, which is not cute at 5'7". And then I got tired of being teeny tiny. And I was looking at these girls on Instagram. I'm like, hey, they just look so good. They look so good. And I saw, of course, the Instagram Fitspos and their workouts. And I was like, okay, maybe I could like lift a little bit. And I like very cautiously in like 2017 started lifting, didn't know anything. Like 2018, I had a coworker that actually was into bodybuilding. She was a figure athlete. She was little, she was like short, but I remember seeing her arms one day and being like, oh my God, her arms looked amazing. Like they had shape and like they didn't just look like little twigs sticking out of the body. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I watched her go through her prep and I was just impressed by how like strict she was on her diet. And we were both servers at the time. And I was just watching her bring her meals, eat her chicken and broccoli and rice, and watching her portions get less and less. And I was like, dang, this is impressive. And then I saw her stage shots and I was blown away by it. That kind of got me down to like, well, maybe I could do something in the bodybuilding. I still was very new to lifting. I'd only been lifting for probably 2 years at that point. And then I tried to like prep myself. Horrible idea. Failed miserably. Had no idea what a diet was. I lifted the same weights for like 2 years straight in the gym because I had no idea how to eat properly. And then when I was like, okay, I need to actually, if I actually want to do this, I need to hire a coach. And so I did the wrong thing when hiring my first coach. Picked the first person that I knew that competed. I had watched compete a couple times. She didn't have really any prep clients, but she said that she was a prep coach. And I was like, yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Got put on a really strict meal plan, but I was actually eating like an actual bodybuilder at that point. So I was like, okay, we made a little bit of like, we made some baby gains at that point. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. We went through our whole 16-week prep and stepped on stage. And that was my introduction to competing the first time.
Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. Did you ever envision that you would take it to where you have taken it, or was it just like, let me take this kind of day by day, see what happens, we're kind of getting our workouts in?
So I started in 2019. That was my first prep and first season in 2019. And if you told 2019 Carly that I would be here today and like done everything that I've done, would not have believed you. I was super unconfident when I first got into competing. And honestly, I was using competing as a means to feel more confident about myself. And I'd never been competitive in the past. My family is very much go have fun. And if you place well, that's great. But the main moral of the story is I hope you had fun. And growing up in that kind of atmosphere, I never really felt like I could be really competitive. So I never really believed in myself to like do well at anything like sports, bodybuilding, school, like all of it. It was like you felt more like it was you're in it for the participation trophy. Like, that's horrible to say, but I didn't feel like I was ever good enough to do well at anything. And I wanted, like, not through lack of wanting to, like, I really wanted to be good at something. I always felt like I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out of everything I did. And I was like, you know what? Seeing the girl that I first saw go through a prep be so dedicated to something, I wanted that for myself really bad. So I remember making a video and being like, hey, like, no one has to understand why you want to prep for your first one, but you're doing it for yourself, and you will regret not stepping on stage. So I went in initially just like, okay, like, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to do it 100%. I don't know what's going to happen when I step on stage or when I step off stage. It was very much just like trying to get through that very first prep and prove to myself that I could be that strict on a diet, that I could do all the cardio that was asked of me and do all the workouts that was asked of me and just make it to show day. But I remember stepping off stage for prejudging, and mind you, this is a really small show. Like, there was 2 girls, myself and one other girl in my like novice class, 3 girls in my open class, so very small. But I remember stepping off stage and just like, I was born to do this. Like, I was born to do this. I was not a confident person. Like, in person, I was very shy and very muted, but it was like I put this mask on when I stepped on stage. Like, this alter ego came out when I stepped on stage, and I was like, I don't know who that was, but I like her. Like, I like her. I want to be more like her. And so, like I said, I got bit by the competition prep bug at that point, and I did 3 shows, like that show, and then I went and like did another one, and then another one, and just for 4 years straight, I just competed nonstop.
Was that first experience of doing that, like, what was that mentally like? Was there any part of you that was like fighting against it at all?
I went into my first one, and a lot of people around me didn't really think I would make it to stage, because I had been like, oh, I'm going to prep myself, and I failed at that. So a lot of people expected me not to make it to show day, or they weren't really supportive of it. At least the people who were in my life at that point, they weren't super, super supportive of it. And they also just didn't really understand why I wanted to do it to begin with. Didn't feel super, super like locked in the fact that I was like, oh, I'm going to make it to stage no matter what. But I definitely felt like I wanted to prove to myself that I could get there. And I didn't honestly know how I would feel stepping on stage for the first time, if I would even like it. I was like, maybe I do it once and you never do it again. It was a mental battle to get there, because that was the most strict I'd ever been. I went from not being strict diet at all to being on a meal, like a very strict meal plan. I almost did it out of spite. Followed it super strictly. I was like, people were like, oh, she's not going to do it. She's never going to. Like, she said she was going to do it last time and she didn't make it, so she probably won't make it this time. I'm like, I can be very spiteful. I'm very spiteful. And I definitely took that one to heart a little bit. And I was like, okay, all right, I see how it is. I'm going to do this. Even if I don't like it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get to the end goal and I'm going to be like, ha, I did it.
Throughout the years, what motivated you and what kind of motivates you today, do you feel like?
So it definitely started out with doing it out of spite, and also to prove to myself that I could commit to it. But it definitely evolved. I enjoyed the fact that every time I stepped on stage, I brought something different, not always better, but different. And it was almost like you were this walking science experiment. And watching my body change as I put effort into it, it was like I can control all of these things and change my body so drastically that I definitely got like addicted to the like watching the change, watching the progress happen, loving the fact that my body was changing, and I was loving how my body was looking, not just with losing weight, but just with as I added muscle tissue, I loved my shape changed. And for the first time, I wasn't this 5'7", twiggy looking girl. I had muscle, I had shape, and I loved that side of things. I loved the feeling of being on stage, yes, but I also grew to love the mundane tasks, like the day-to-day, like the checklist. I was never good at scheduling things prior, and prep made me really like learn how to be regimented and like, okay, at this time I've got to do my cardio, school or work or whatever it is. I have to get all these things done. I only have so many hours in the day. So I got really good at, for the first time in my life, really good at like scheduling things. And I felt like I became a more structured person, which I feel like in prep, I've become better because of prep. But in prep, I feel like my structure is so much better. And I loved the fact that prep and competing gave that to me, like a way to learn how to be better in all areas of my life. So where it started out as something that like I kind of did out of spite and to prove myself that I could do it, it turned more into like, I love the person that competing has grown myself into. Like I said, I loved the fact that when I stepped on stage that first time, that I was so confident. When I'm in reality, like in my normal day to day, I really wasn't that confident person. As I've continued competing, I've become more and more and more that person off stage as well, which I think for me, that's what I appreciate the most about competing is that it's given me confidence in more areas of my life than just competing.
Would you say that you had like a positive, using the word addictive kind of in a positive way here, an addiction of like, I love the fact that I can control variables and like I know what the outcome is going to be?
Yeah. At the point I started competing, I was in a really like toxic relationship. And so I didn't feel like I had control of a lot of things in my life. And actually competing gave me the confidence to leave that relationship. So I'm thankful for that. I found that I could control those things. Like the gym was my escape from all of that. And I found that I could control my diet. I could control my exercise. I could control my energy that I put out to people. And to me, that was definitely very addictive because when you feel like your life is kind of in a bit of chaos, when you lean into the things that you can control, you find that you're happier. I'm like, okay, like I can control all of these things. And then the rest of these things, like I can't control. Even this year, I've had to learn to let go of things that like you clearly have no control over. There's like, I find that there's no help. Like that doesn't help you any to continue stressing over things that you have no control over. So I definitely leaned into that a lot. Can appreciate that competing gave that to me because otherwise I feel like I would be on a much different path had I not started competing and not learned how to like lean into the daily tasks that are controllable.
Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. Do you ever feel like the checklist that in some sense is this security blanket, but it has like the potential to create maybe like a negative side effect as well, where it's like, if you have control, like, that can feel really good. But then there's that other side that's like, when you have that control for so long, you start maybe to feel like you always need it.
100%. This year is a perfect example of it. I was prepping and did my first show and started experiencing some vertigo issues. What I thought initially was something minor ended up being a lot more major issue. And I can't control that. You can't control how that impacts your life, how it impacts the people around you. I ended up having to step back at work, which I couldn't control that because the doctors are like, hey, you can't drive. So like, boom, loss of control there. I can't drive. I can't go to work. I can't do some of the simple tasks for myself anymore. That's really hard. Like this year was probably the most, I had to learn to let go massively this year because I could not control any of it. I couldn't control the timeline for doctors. When you're waiting for a specialist, to get on a specialist calendar, you realize just how a long time just for your first appointment is going to be. So I had to learn to let go a lot this year. And I will not say I was perfect. Like there was a lot of times that I struggled letting go of control, but this year has taught me that like, okay, I can't let all the things happening in my life control how I feel every single day. Otherwise I'm going to be a miserable person. Like I should be like, I could be incredibly miserable and be a party pooper all the time because like, oh, boo, woe is me. Life threw something at me that like I can't control. But why be that person when you could be the person like, okay, let's find the positive. Okay, maybe I can't drive myself, but my husband still goes to the gym every night. I can ride with him to the gym. I can take care of that. I can adjust my workouts, adjust my lifestyle, whatever I need to do to remain happy and not holding on to the fact that, oh, I can't control this like diagnosis in my life. This year has been a let it go year.
Do you feel like during that time, you know, especially just getting used to that idea, do you feel like you were gaining more of like an appreciation for, or maybe even past an appreciation, but like a fixation on like the short term, like, okay, these are the things that I know are going to be, you know, like today we're going to be doing this?
I definitely focused on the short term. Well, probably a mix of the both. I still tried to keep myself busy because I was still prepping. Like I got diagnosed and I was like, okay. I asked my doctors, I'm like, does this mean I need to stop what I'm doing? And they're like, no, be active, do what you need to do. There's no reason you can't do the things you're already doing. You just might have to adjust a bit. Honestly, that's what kept me sane. It like was my checklist. I still set my alarm every morning, got up and did fasted cardio, cleaned the house and did whatever I could do to keep myself busy. Because I found the busier I stayed, the less in my head I got about everything. The more focused I was able to stay on the tasks at hand. So I tried to keep things still regimented, just like it was if I was still working. The busier I stayed, the happier I was. But in reality, I also knew it was temporary. From what I understood, it was temporary. Okay, I just need to make it till X date and I'll get to my first appointment. Okay, like first appointment, awesome. All right, now surgery date. Okay, and now I just need to like hold out until this day. And then even after surgery, I was like, okay, I had to learn to rewalk a little bit and balance and everything. I had to relearn all of that. So I was like, okay, like little tasks each day to like get myself closer towards my goal of just being back to fully functioning again. I wanted to keep busy and keep on task every day. So I definitely focused on like, yes, the little short-term goals, but also long-term because I was like, okay, like it's impacting me now, but I refuse to let this be something that I struggle with for the rest of my life. I took every day as a challenge to move the pin forward because I started out, I had to spend like 4 days, I think, in the hospital, like 2 days in intensive care and then 1.5 days, I think, in just like a normal, like the normal 4. And as soon as they would allow me, I was like, I want to get up and get moving. And that required my husband and my dad to like one person on one side and literally just baby steps. First, we just walked. I remember the first day we took one walk and I walked around this little loop and back and I was exhausted. Like I slept for like a solid 3 hours after that. And the next day I'm like, okay, I did one walk yesterday. Like I'm at two today. And so I was like, okay, like two full walks today. And then I kept like, okay, how can I keep moving my progress forward? Because they had to repair, it's called superior canal dehiscence syndrome, which is basically a hole in your inner ear, like the bone that surrounds your superior canal, which causes all sorts of balance issues. So when they do surgery in that area, it causes a ton of balance issues. And because they close the hole, your body has to relearn balance again because they've messed with it. And you went from being used, your body adapted to the hole. Now it's having to adapt to being closed again. I was like, how can I continue to push this forward and not just, I was like, movement is my key to recovery. I refused, even if I was dizzy. Like I remember I got home finally. And as soon as I could walk down the stairs to my basement into like where my cardio area is, I put one hand on each side of the treadmill, like one speed, no incline, and just like plodding along. And I like was moving my head back and forth, making myself dizzy essentially to rectify the problem. And I just kept, all right, what can I do to continue to force the body to adapt to the new like environment? And I found that I made really quick recovery because I was not allowing myself just to sit and be sedentary. The more I moved, the quicker my recovery went. And I remember going to my 1 month post-op appointment and my doctor being like, movement is medicine. Like, he's like, you are way farther along than the majority of people. And he cleared me fully at 1 month, which I was nervous that he wouldn't clear me to go back to work. But he's like, nope, you're good. But I was big on like just moving the pin forward little bit by little bit by little bit and refusing to allow my situation to like remain sedentary. It massively shifted my mental perspective on everything. You take driving for granted. And for 5 months, I couldn't drive myself. Now I'm like, I'll drive. Like, I'll drive happily. I'll drive anywhere, quite happily. Do you need me to go to the store? I'll go to the store. I will not take that for granted. I will not take movement for granted. Movement on where the world isn't spinning. Because for 5 months, I basically dealt with vertigo, like that would just be triggered by sound, all sorts of things triggered it. So like I took for granted listening to music in both ears. I had to stop listening to music. I was going to the gym with an earplug in one ear, a headphone in the other, and then sound canceling headphones over all of it to prevent vertigo attacks. Now, like I remember the first time I listened to music in both ears and I was just like, oh, it was just such an amazing feeling. Things that I took for granted, now I'm like, never again. Movement, listening to music in both ears, driving. Now I get to drive to the gym. Now I get to work out. Now I get to move my body. And it feels good. And I'm fueling myself. And I love it. And I definitely, that shifted my perspective massively because there was a lot of times you'd be sitting at the couch and be like, ugh, I don't really want to go to the gym. I don't really want to go to work. That's the other thing because I had to stop working. Now, like, I remember my husband complaining about having to go to work. I'm like, remember, you get to go to work. I don't get to go to work right now. And I would love to be at work and be able to come home and complain about my coworkers. Like it's the stuff like that you like don't think about. But when suddenly everything's just taken away from you, it's like when you finally get all that back, you're like, it's like, great, I get to go to work. I don't care what happens at work today. I get to go to work. I get to drive myself to work. I get to go to the gym. I get to do however much cardio. I don't care how hard my workout is. I'll be there pushing through all the sets and being like, yep, I get to move my body and I'm enjoying it. Sometimes it's a small thing that can end up being a very, very large impact. I thought it was a sinus infection. I was convinced it was a sinus infection when I first started. I remember posting asking allergies. I remember asking on my Instagram story if anyone had ever taken an allergy shot before, because that's what I thought it was. Little did I know like what was on my bingo card for the year. I will say the one thing that bodybuilding definitely helped with it was I could tell something was wrong. The majority of primary care doctors have no idea what this condition is. I remember coming back after being diagnosed and going to get my stitches removed and telling the doctor that was removing my stitches the superior canal dehiscence syndrome, and no idea. He's like, I can tell it has to do with the ear, but I couldn't tell you what it is. So people suffer with this kind of condition for years and years, which is like, I'm thankful for bodybuilding because I was like, nope, something's wrong. And they were trying to push steroids at me. They were trying to push antibiotics at me. They were like, oh, you don't have a sinus infection or an ear infection, but how about let's just take some antibiotics? You never know, it might help. I'm like, no, something's wrong. Like something's wrong. And so I was the squeaky wheel that was like, nope. Refer me, and continued to push for a referral. And I finally, by luck, got into a ENT office, like an ear, nose, throat office that had a physical therapist that also specialized in balance issues. And the ENT was like booked up till like July. July. It was like months away at this point. So they're like, oh, but you could see the physical therapist and maybe she can diagnose you, like maybe get you fixed. And I was like, okay, awesome. And I remember being in with the physical therapist and I could tell that she knew something was wrong. And I could see like her brain working, because next thing I know, she's pulling in the ENT, sending me off for this like 3-hour long test and a CAT scan. She didn't tell me at that point, but I think she had an inkling that something deeper was wrong, because she was like, this is not physical therapy at this point. And between like the 1 3-hour test was like all to do with balance. And it just was like this like obstacle course of balance tests to narrow down what part of the ear was affected. And then the CAT scan was actually to show that there wasn't a hole. And after all of that, officially got diagnosed. And I would not have gotten diagnosed that quickly had I not been continuing to push and been like, I know my body and I know this is wrong.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. At what point did you start to feel like that bodybuilding, you may have some success in the sport, you may have like a future that may lead to a pro card, or that may lead to at least the potential to really have the opportunity to get that pro card?
It developed over time for sure. Initially I was just enjoying competing at the local level. I was doing decent. Like my first show, I got 3 first place. Again, it was a small show. And then I got 3 shows after that. I placed third and third and third. And I was just irritated. I was like, I'm determined to place first again. I'm like I refuse to be third place. It was like third, like back to back to back to back. I think probably my season in 2020, it was the first time I ever competed at Wasatch. And that was a much larger show than I was used to. And I placed third place at that one. The first time I competed at that one. And seeing the girls that then went on to get their pro cards, I was like, okay, like I placed third. Not there yet, but that's like some of these girls went on and got their pro cards. Like it could be in the cards for me. And that kind of got the ball rolling of like, okay, I can make it a goal to like work towards it. I never like to say road to pro. I always said grow to pro because I was small, and I always got feedback. It needs more upper body, needs more upper body, needs more upper body. So I was like, okay, like I'm not on a road to pro. I'm on growing to pro. So like I'm just continue to grow until I'm there. And then in 21 was my first attempt at a national stage. I was still much too small and not conditioned enough. But at that point, it was definitely one of those, I saw firsthand what was placing and doing well. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go into an off season. I don't care how long it takes. I know what it takes to get there. And at that point, like I was determined. I was like, this is the next time I step on stage, like it will be on track for pro card at that point.
How do you go from, competing and seeing yourself on stage to then having to take, more time and not have that, I guess, sure thing?
Putting your all into it. I worked really hard to put on enough size. And then at the point I was dieting down, I was like, okay, do I have enough size? I was ready to pull the plug on prep. If like I started to uncover that muscle that wasn't there. Like if I started to uncover and I realized I was too small, I was ready to pull the plug on prep at that point. I was like, I'm only going to step on stage if I can be competitive. I wanted to be competitive. Doesn't mean I'm guaranteed a placing. So I was like, okay. When I think I was 6 weeks out from Wasatch and I swapped over to Shane and I was like, hey, like, am I going to be ready? Like, I want to do some damage at this very first show and come out of my off season with a bang. He was very honest with me. He was like, you'll be ready. We'll be ready. I was like, okay, awesome. I'm like, he knew my long-term goal was for pro card. I'm like, I have the ability to do 2 shows, like national shows this year. This was pre-diagnosis. I was like, that to change up things a little bit. But I was basically like, if I'm not ready, tell me. And that was my huge thing. I'm like, I don't want to be fluffed up into a show. I want to be told when I'm ready. And then I'll be like, okay, I'll step on stage.
Not being impatient, but being more like, you're just like asking yourself, like, is my body going to get there? How is it going to get there? How long is it going to take to get there? Like, did any of that stuff cross your mind during that journey as well?
Definitely. When I first started my season, it was the heaviest weight I'd ever started a season at. So I was concerned about that. I was like, that's a lot. I was 150 pounds. I had never been over 140 pounds, never even really been high 130s prior. So starting a prep at like 150 was scary. So initially, just right out the gate, that was like, how long is this going to take to come off? I also really was struggling seeing how much muscle I had built. I thought I had done a decent amount, but it's still really hard when you're pushed up weight so high. So initially, right out the gates, it was like, okay, did I actually put on enough muscle or is this body fat? And then as I started to lean down, I was like, okay, I wasn't liking how I was leaning down. I was like, I was having like flashbacks to 21. And I was like, okay, this is not how I want to look. Like, I don't want to bring my 21 look back to stage. Like I worked too hard in my improvement season to put the same thing on stage. And so at that point, I ended up swapping coaches and changed up training, changed up a lot of things. And my body did like a 180. And just seeing how my body reacted in those like first 2 weeks, I was like, okay, feeling better. And my very first show with Shane was, yes, still nerve wracking in the fact that I was like, okay, like I've never prepped with this coach prior. I've never stepped on like peak with this coach prior. So it was learning each other basically. But after seeing what we put on stage at Wasatch this year and just him being like, you're ready. You're ready. And I was like, okay, I trust you. We won the overall at that show. And I was like, okay, if he says I'm ready, I'm just going to put trust in him and quit worrying about the what ifs, because I'm like, I know he's going to be honest with me. If I'm ready, I'll step on stage. If I'm not ready, we won't even sign up for the show. So yeah, it definitely started out the season of massively questioning if this was the right decision to come out of an improvement season, but quickly turned in the right direction. I was like, okay, for me, it was letting go of control of that. Honestly, took so much stress off of me. I was just like, I don't have to worry about it. Like he can stress about me being ready. I'll just do what he tells me and I'm good.
What was your thought pattern? What was your kind of emotional state, if you will, kind of going into, that show you turned pro at?
So 2 weeks prior, I did junior nats and I got second. So one away from my pro card. I was like, well, made it there. I was already struggling with balance and stuff like that pretty bad. So I was like, okay, am I even able to push for this next show? And I talked to Shane and like, I think the Wednesday, it was literally like 3 days before technically I would start peak week, I finally agreed to do Universe and signed up. And I was like, I had surgery. So Universe was on the 5th of July for bikini. And I had surgery August 16th. So I was like, I told myself going into this season, I would do 2 national shows. I initially thought that the 2 national shows had gotten taken away from me because of getting diagnosed with superior canal dehiscence syndrome. So I was like, I don't want to leave my season feeling like that anything was taken away from me. I'm like, I refuse to feel like anything was taken away from me. So I honestly went into Universe like, this is my last show of the season. I knew at that point I would do no more. Didn't matter how I placed. There was no more shows this season. And like, I just need to focus on putting some healthy weight on and going into surgery and having no problems. I basically was like, whatever happens will happen. I felt like I had a decent chance because I had just placed second at junior nats and rolled right into the next national show. So I felt like I had a decent place, at least placing like top 5 or getting first call outs. I was like, it's a larger show than junior nats. Didn't know who, of course, would show up. It's all about who shows up on the day, but just really went into Universe like, whatever happens, I didn't have to end my season early. This is how I wanted my season to go. I will ride this full season out exactly how I had planned it. Then we'll go into improvement season, and no matter what, there's always room for growth. Even if I step off stage with a pro card, I'm still going to have stuff to implement in my improvement season. So I was like, whatever happens will happen. It was the most chill and calm I had ever been backstage. I was just enjoying talking to my teammates and chilling. And I was like, when it was time to step on stage, there was a calm, like the sense of calm that came over me.
Do you feel like there was any value for you, maybe in the long run, that getting it at that second show, getting your pro card at that second show instead of that first go arounds?
Definitely. When you go from doing, like, even prior to Wasatch, I was placing well. When then you go into a national level and you're just not sure what to expect, and you take second. And I was like, holy smokes, okay, all that work I put in paid off. So that was a great feeling. But at the same time, like, I knew that I couldn't guarantee a placing at my next show. And even when you win your pro card, it's like you climb to the top of the amateur ladder just to get knocked right back down again at the pro level. So you're going to lose more shows than you win shows. Honestly, getting it at Universe made me more appreciative of, you aren't going to win all those shows. Like, and it's okay not to win. I got second place. I got a second place pro card. So for me, it was a little bit of a chip on my shoulder of like, oh, you still want that first place. It doesn't matter. Like, I got my pro card. I still wanted that first place. which I'm sure everyone who's gotten a second place pro card feels the same way. But honestly, it has made me work harder. I was like, okay, like if she shows up, the girl that plays first shows up at a pro show, I want to beat her at the next show. So like I was definitely like one to be like, okay, you can't win every show, and that's okay. I still achieved my goal. I'm still super proud of it. Doesn't matter first or second place, still super proud of it. But it definitely made me work even harder. So I'm like, as soon as I got done, like I still had a chunk of time before I had to go into surgery, and I was pushing some serious weight prior to surgery. So it definitely was like a little bit more of like a chip on your shoulder. Like I'm going to work even harder in the gym and beat whoever comes next to me on the pro stage. But of course, I have no idea what's going to happen when it's time to step on stage. Like I said, you go all the way to the top just to get like kicked off and back down to the bottom. But either way, knowing that I'm putting in the work and making improvements is really exciting.
What is in the kind of to do for the next several months?
Just continuing to eat and grow and work. And like at this point, I consider myself like probably 98% recovered. So like I'm feeling good in the gym. I still like struggle with a little bit with like any internal pressure in like my skull. So I have to work really hard at that. But for me, it's just, there's no change. Like I stepped off stage. Had I won my pro card or not, it still would be just to work and improve and continue to grow. Because there's always room for growth in this sport. And that's honestly one of the reasons I love it so much, because even like whoever wins Olympia this weekend is still going to step off stage with feedback. So and I love that. Like some people are like, oh God, I get the same feedback. Like I need shoulders for years. And I was so happy that this season was the first season I got that I did not get any comments on needs more shoulders. I was like, success. So yeah, it's just continuing to work and build and grow to my pro debut.
Does anything carry into being a pro? Like, hey, I am a pro, even though I'm not going to do anything different if I wasn't. There is still some of that pro dust that's nonetheless going to kind of fly off when I do anything.
Yeah. My thought is just I want to be someone that amateurs look up to in the sport. I looked up to so many pros at an amateur level, and I'm like, okay, I want to leave a positive impact on anyone in the amateur league, because that's the heart of this sport. New athletes come up all the time, and it's amazing to see everyone's transformations in the sport. And I am just thinking of everything that bodybuilding has given me. I'm like, I want to continue to hold myself to a high standard, to inspire other people to maybe take the first step and do the first show. Because I remember being so scared to like make that decision just to do my first prep. But now I cannot thank that person, like 2019 me, I cannot thank her enough for taking that first step. So yeah, for me, it's just like, okay, how can I continue to like hold myself to a higher standard as a pro and continue to inspire the next generation of bodybuilders? I'm huge on looking back at your progress, because sometimes you're like, am I even making any progress? Like, am I like really putting on muscle? Am I really growing as an athlete? And then I look back at who I was in like 2018, 2017, and I don't even look like the same person anymore. I don't feel like the same person anymore. But the scared little girl that decided to take that very first step into the gym just got the ball rolling. And I wouldn't be here without her. So like I'm huge on like thanking your past self, but also like look back to look forward. I worked so hard in the past. Now, how can I implement this to continue moving forward in my progress, and like just inspiring you to keep pushing forward?
Balance of like, I'm okay with who I am, but I know I need to be better.
Yeah. You step off stage and like, I could have done this better, but you still made it to stage. You still worked really hard. You still brought your best to stage on that day, but you can continue to improve and be better every single time you step on stage. For some people, feedback is a negative thing. I could have taken the feedback on my shoulders personally and like let it be like, oh, woe is me, I don't have good enough shoulders. Or you can take your feedback and be like, okay, I need bigger shoulders. Let's get to work. I would like to not get that feedback again, so let's get to work. So it's all on how you take feedback and take criticism. Because if you're signing up for the sport, it is criticism all around on like, even if you brought an amazing package to stage, the judges are still going to have something for you.
Great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing your story and sharing what you've been through and kind of how you've overcome some pretty interesting situations over the years. It's been great to kind of, see how that's unfolded so far and how it will continue to do so. But thanks for coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you having me. This is actually my very first ever podcast. So
best of luck in your journey moving forward. Before we head out, if you want to share any socials or share any, upcoming dates or anything with people that you think people need or want to know about, you can go ahead and do that.
So the only social I'm really active on is Instagram. And that's just Carly IFBB Pro. I keep it really simple. And then I have my posing page, which is center and STG, center stage posing. But you can, honestly, they're linked to each other. So if you find one, you'll find both.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.